I guess now we've got time for questions. I also want to acknowledge, I think Irene from Ireland, another World Board member, has linked in as well. I think I saw her. So hi, Irene. So yeah, we can hopefully try and respond to questions and get feedback. And again, you know, Danny talked about the email address, worldboard@na.org. Please, anything that you send to that email address, the board does see. And if you've got ideas, input, we're totally open. We want to be able to, I guess, build and construct something that keeps working for our fellowship and keep making this better and learning how we can better serve. And so we're all in this together. And yeah, we look forward to your input. There are two hands I can see. And I think the first one was it Anne?
Yeah, hi, my name's Anne. I'm an addict from
Hi, Anne.
CMP region, PR chair. And you guys went through a lot of links and information. Is there like a document so that I can get those like in one place? But Patricia has them. I'll get them.
And I can, if you, okay, otherwise if you send me a message here, I can email that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Anne.
Great.
Wilvina, I think you're next.
Hi, everybody. Wilvina, addict. Danny and Lib, that was a very comprehensive presentation. And my question actually has to do with, at the last conference, you guys might recall there was an amendment for virtual meetings. And I know that what was happening, or what we were told is happening, is that the last amendment, or actually the last motion that the LAZF made for the guidebook, that somehow, you know, that motion was going to be, or amendment was going to be revisited. There's been some discussion between my RG from Eastern New York and myself about what may happen this upcoming conference, about whether or not motions are going to be revisited to make this the virtual meetings, you know, I'm going to say just accepted and not legitimate. So I want to know if you guys can speak about that since we're all here.
Wilvina, I don't think that there's, but I think if I remember, and I'm older, the end of the conference, we got to the motions that either hadn't come up or hadn't been completed. There was the possibility for them to be returned at the next conference. This issue continues, and I believe that we are learning more and more because we're a year down the road. So this is something that we certainly want to look at, finding how we can acknowledge, reflect our fellowship, the way that meetings are occurring. You know, Danny touched on the history. There's been a reluctance by our fellowship to recognise or register online groups, and we're now in a place where we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. As Danny noted, last week we agreed as a board that part of the survey, the next survey to come up, will be looking at recognising virtual meetings. I think we all have a sense of meeting the group booklet processes for a group. And we really, I think, want to keep trying to open this up, and feedback and comments will help us all learn. So I'm not sure that that answered it, Wilvina, but absolutely what we didn't deal with at the last conference can certainly come back at the next conference. So yeah, Danny, have you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, the amendment that you're speaking of, Wilvina, was motion 10A1, which was your region, supported by Wisconsin, Chesapeake and Potomac and Ukraine. And what I recall from looking at the summary decisions is that there was consensus support, then strong support, then support, and then it failed. So there seems to have been a decision on that made at the conference. And as Lib mentioned, there was, what I recall was said, and we haven't discussed this as a board yet, was even the motions that the board made that we decided not to prioritize, particularly motions 4 and 5 with the FIPT, that there would be an opportunity to resubmit those motions that weren't discussed or made a decision on. We haven't actually talked through that yet or what that looks like, but I would foresee we will very soon.
Yeah, that does address the question. And, you know, Eastern New York is discussing with, you know, at the home group level right now, to bring back that motion. Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Thank you, Wilvina. And please, as your communities get more information, more thoughts, please let us know so that we can walk along this pathway together. What we're wanting is to not have barriers. It's making sure that, you know, we're all in this together. We're trying to make sure our message is out there, that newcomers can find us, old timers can find us, and we can all stay. Thanks, Wilvina. Now we go to Mike, who is the webmaster, and I'm going to ask you to unmute, Mike.
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm an addict.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, I'm also from the Eastern New York region, and yeah, we've been doing a lot of stuff with the virtual. I have two questions. One referred to the hybrid training options and stuff like that that Danny talked about. I kind of looked at this stuff months ago, and one of my major concerns was that it was too technical in nature and too cost prohibitive for the average group to deal with the incorporation of the hybrid option. I'm currently doing it with a cell phone and a laptop and a monitor, old. It doesn't cost the group really hardly anything that we've had to spend in additional materials, and it works perfectly with the audio and video. So what I'm asking is there an intention to keep those things in mind going forward with training information for hybrid groups to start, because they will be starting again as we can kind of start getting back to normal, but that's going to be the bridge. My second question concerns the definition of hybrid that Danny was talking about. I'm really concerned in terms of the BMLT aspect of it. Defining a hybrid meeting that meets at a different time and day for a same group really doesn't work with inside of BMLT. My experience has been, if you're a meeting virtually at a different time, yet the same group, well, yeah, you're the same group, but you're a different meeting. So it's just a virtual meeting running on Wednesday and the in-person portion runs on Sunday, same group. We do this all the time, but calling that a hybrid really is problematic. My definition of hybrid when I run and manage BMLT is either they run in person and hybrid at the same time, whether that means a laptop is in the room or there's two distinctly different meetings going on at the same time and day. That's a hybrid. You know, splitting the daytime thing is, like I said, I don't know what Danny's take is on that concerning BMLT and how we list those meetings and how we consider them in management. That's it.
I think we can acknowledge my technical deficiencies, and thank goodness you addressed that to Danny, Mike. Thanks, mate.
I'll take the second question first. I mean, World Services just listens to what the fellowship is doing, and we just know that there are groups calling that hybrid meetings. I'm sure if you went to the BMLT community, you'd get a whole bunch of different implementations. The one thing I know about that is, like, when it comes to formats and the definition of formats, it's a very, very, you know, it's a very particularly, like, it's like a local custom kind of thing. And so again, like, as we're just a collaboration of resources, and this is just one of the definitions. Like, you may not like that definition, but somebody else does. And then the first part to your question was, I mean, World Services doesn't necessarily, like, handle training of, like, how to start a hybrid meeting, But like I said, you can go to the virtual resources page. I know there's a lot of people in this meeting right now. Shane's here. He's a good resource to, the North Star group was one of the first hybrid meetings, or if not the first hybrid meeting in the world. So that's a great resource to help understand that. And yeah, I mean, it might be cost prohibitive in some cases, but like I said before, like the cost of doing things like with technology continues to drop and it becomes more and more available and accessible.
Are you good with that, Mike? Has Danny covered everything off there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I could go on if there's no other questions, but
Hey.
like, I mean, like I said, what we're doing here at Eastern New York region, we've been very proactive as a region in the groups. So, my only other question I think I'd add, since there's no others, is there any intention at the world level, zonal level, regional level that you're hearing of providing support to groups that continue on virtually? Because it is very, once again, a loss of money to Narcotics Anonymous to have individual groups running their own Zoom meetings. Currently, right now, it costs 66 cents at the Eastern New York region to run one meeting for 2 to 3 hours on our platform for a group, $3 a month, rather than them spending $15 a month and then also having a technical person capable of setting up the Zoom account.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really important thing that our service structure, maybe think about implementing this as a service to the groups so that they can just come and get a Zoom meeting without having to go through, their own, trials and tribulations of how to figure this stuff out. Any thoughts about doing that?
I would like, and this is not to put that question to the side, Mike, I'd love it if you would send us what you've just asked to wb@na.org. Danny and I have heard your question, and there's a number of other board members, excuse me. And I think it is a really big issue. How can we all support groups to be able to continue to carry the message? And it's something that we do need to talk about. I know at the moment, from what I've seen around the world, there are different people who lend their Zoom accounts, and there are areas that purchase the Zoom account, or regions, and then it's shared. But in the brave new world, as we go on, we do need to talk about that and how we can all continue to support. And I'm not sure if it's from the top down or the bottom up. I don't really have an answer, but it's something certainly that we can talk about. And yeah, I can see Danny, Yoel, and myself in the same row on my screen. So that's 3 of the Toolbox team. So we can take that one away and come back on that, hopefully with an update over time. Thank you, Mike. I'm now going to go to Rob. And if you can unmute yourself.
I believe some other people had their hands up in front of me.
I can see okay, I've got, all right, there's Anne, Wilvina, and you, and I guess I'd gone to you because you hadn't asked a question yet. But that's all good. I can, I'll start with Anne again.
Okay, just people talking about whatever. Anyways, what I did was regional PR. I purchased a Zoom account on our regional budget, and I have it available to any service meeting in our region, and also NA events. So that is an expense that the region's doing. And then doing all the different meetings and everything, a lot of areas in our region. Now, I can't say a lot of areas, a few areas in our region actually have like an account, and they are loading up on meetings with just one account instead of all these individual people paying that $150 a year or $15 a month. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a lot of different scenarios on how people are trying to, save the individual addicts money. And so, I mean, in the meantime, before something can be offered, that's something that people can do. So that's it out of me. Thanks.
Thanks, Anne. And it's something that we absolutely can try and highlight, perhaps at the next open webinar. Not wanting to preempt anything, but maybe that's an information sharing of what you just talked about. So thank you. Wilvina, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay. Hi, thanks for taking my question again. So at the last PR webinar this past Thursday, there was discussion about some national programs that support virtual efforts for public relations in H&I. In this case, I'm referring to the JPay program that the Department of Corrections and those manufacturers are national. My question has to do with whether or not World Services will help support the zones, and I guess in particular, one of the things we're running up against, at least in the Northeast zone, there's a bunch of local PR people that are contacting Department of Corrections, like individually. Now, the question was asked and answered on the PR webinar that they would just let all of these local people do that. But I'm wondering, in this virtual world, does it make more sense, especially when we're talking about some national agencies and national programs? Like, I know that Biden is going to, make the federal corrections and get rid of private prisons. So in terms of supporting our zones and regions to support these things from a wider level, a multi-zonal level, in the United States especially, will World Services consider being that contact or supporting a contact in a broader sense, since we're talking about virtual at this point?
Wilvina, I'm not sure if I heard you. Did you say that this question was answered at the PR webinar?
The answer we got at the PR webinar, and it was specifically relating to the national GTL manufacturers for JPay. The question was, could World Services just do that from a national basis and then have those local wardens opt out on it? Like, wouldn't it make more sense, instead of having 50 people contact the manufacturers, having one contact? So the answer we got was, no, just have all the local people continue to do that, right? Even though you don't need local people to push the literature. So I don't know if that question is getting a little more off, but
was that with who gave you that answer?
The PR manager,
Jane. Yep.
Yeah.
And I assumed, but I didn't want to do that. I'm sure that Danny and I can have some more follow up again, that it's come up again, just to see if there is anything we can do, or if it is continuing that we recommend individuals. My cat is about to jump on the desk, just so you're all warned. But I can check in with Jane. She overshares, my cat. Thank you. Thanks,
Okay,
Wilvina.
yeah, because just to say, not just with JPay, we're talking about any other national initiatives that may affect PR, that may affect H&I. Instead of having 500 people ask these top people the same question. So that's pretty much it.
That's cool. Thank you so much for bringing that up again. And I will send something to Jane. Thank you. Now, my patient brother, Rob, if you could unmute yourself. Thanks, mate.
I'm an addict. My name's Rob. Lib, Danny, thank you both for participating in the Autonomy Zonal today and bringing focus to the virtual communities, as we've all been focusing on since March of last year. And, I went to my first virtual meeting, I think in 2014, and I realized they've been here a long time. They're going to be here long after the pandemic is over. Danny, you referenced the 2004 vote at the conference that said, I'm going to paraphrase it, about, recognizing or somehow looking at the virtual group. And it had a very positive, vote, but it wasn't really like a consensus because we weren't like consensus-based decision-making back then. So I hope that the conference will reintroduce that motion or some kind of other form of that motion in upcoming years, maybe 2022, because I know that vote passed with about a, I don't know, it was about a 60% passage on that vote in 2004. But I'm not sure, Danny, I'm not sure if I'll put you on the spot, but I know that you attended a virtual support forum just recently, and these virtual support forums are kind of a grassroots movement. They're starting to happen on a monthly basis, kind of looking at ways as a fellowship we can support each other. Danny, I know you attended it, and I hope that the other World Board members will have an opportunity to attend one of the forums. It was very beneficial for the groups to get together. Other than a sponsored by the World or sponsored by the region or sponsored by the zone, we have a one-day workshop, and it kind of like everybody left. The forums kind of give it some continuity, some threads that people can grab onto and pull together and sew some kind of a fabric there. But like I said, I'd just like to invite, would the World Board members would like to come to some of these virtual support forums. And Danny, I don't know if you want to give some feedback of what you've seen happening there, some viewpoints on that.
Sure, thanks, Rob. To go back to the motion, it wasn't a motion, it was a straw poll. And it was, the decision was, do we think it's premature to proceed with listing online meetings? So the question was sort of asked in the negative, and there were 39 in favor that said it was premature, 21 against, and 11 not sure. And then the second question was, do you want us to continue listing online meetings? It was 30 in favor, 22 yes, 21 not sure. So it was a bit ambiguous. And as you said, so kind of, I guess, leading, is that yes, we are going to discuss it at the next conference, and there will be a lot of things coming out very shortly that indicate that this is exactly what we've been hearing from the fellowship. I personally have not heard anybody say that we shouldn't register virtual meetings as groups, but we want to ask the question anyway. That's what I've heard, and as a board, we have consensus to ask the fellowship this question. And we've already discussed, not exactly what we would discuss at the conference, but that we would discuss this topic specifically. Regarding the virtual support forum, I did share the flyer with the entire World Board. I attended as an interested member of a group, my home group, which meets Thursday night virtually. It's called the Why It Works Remix Group, and we are a virtual only group. And I discussed, because my home group hasn't joined the service structure, because we were looking for something more than just joining an area. We were looking for more than just joining the traditional sort of service structure. And so I attended. Nick E., who is Lib mentioned, is the staff member that's part of the local service toolbox. And Becky, who's the assistant executive director of NA World Services, was also there. And so we are definitely watching with great interest. I will be attending every month because my home group asked me to. And I am observing, because I am a board member, I am observing and taking keen interest. I thought it was great. One of the things I've personally felt is that a lot of the virtual meetings have, not speaking for the board, a lot of virtual meetings have tried to retrofit themselves into the existing service structure. And I also agree that virtual meetings are not going anywhere. You may see the fellowship, a lot of meetings will return back to face-to-face meetings because they are face-to-face meetings, but virtual meetings are never gonna disappear. They're that ship has already left the port. It's not going back. This ship is sailing the seas. And so with that, I personally have felt where's the community of virtual groups? Where's that fabric? Like you mentioned perfectly, fellowship development. Where's the fellowship development amongst the virtual meetings in the world? And that's what I saw happen last Sunday at the Virtual Support Forum, was a beginning of something very beautiful, of creating a community, a fabric between the virtual groups all over the world. What that shapes up to look like, we'll see what happens. I see Craig is here, who facilitated that. I'm sure he might have some inputs too. I'll be quiet now.
Hi, this is Patricia. I'm an addict. And I have a question in the chat for Lib and Danny. And it says, it's from Beth M. It says, my home group is completely virtual and doesn't have an area service level way to contribute. Our home group members collectively chip in to pay for the Zoom license and are encouraged to donate to World and our areas. If we go to in-person meeting, but how can I approach servicing donating at the area level as a member of a virtual only group? I'm one who is 100% virtual during this time and fairly new to the program. Thank you.
Patricia, I just want to make sure I understand the question. Is it Beth asking how can her group make a contribution to area or to World?
Let's see. Our home group members collected to, but how can I approach service and donating at the area level as a member of a virtual only group? I don't know.
Okay.
I guess both. No, she said both. Yeah. So how do they donate to the world and how do they donate to the area?
Well, I guess I would check. I'm not sure what area they're a part of or geographically where. And that's one of the issues that we're trying to work on now is our virtual meetings are not necessarily linked to a geographical area. But my sense perhaps is thinking about where your local community is, perhaps where most of the members are, and then finding out where that local area is to do a fund flow. There's all sorts of ways to do that, but I think PayPal, and I think you guys have something called Venmo. I don't think we have that here, but PayPal is certainly what I use to make a direct contribution to NAWS. And the other part, yes, there is a way to make a direct contribution. If you go, once again, if Beth goes to the NA.org page, there is a Contribute Now button, and that can be a one-off or it can be an ongoing monthly contribution. So I'm not sure if that's answered the question. Danny, have you got anything else to add to that?
No, that was great, Lib.
Thank you. Patricia, do you reckon we've covered the question?
I reckon you've covered the question. Yes, I see Beth is still emailing because I'm asking me a question. So she's asking me a question. I would like to let her know she could actually raise her hand and ask her own question and to be sure that we covered her question.
Totally. Because what we want to do is make sure that we're all heard in this forum and we can all support one another.
She gave us double thumbs up, Lib.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've got some hands up. We've got Kim. Could you unmute yourself and ask away?
Thank you. I know I wasn't next, but Lib, if you're cueing us the way you want to, I'll let you.
Well, you were there and then you put your hand down, so I've just put you back up.
I did. So you caught me fence sitting, but my question has to, thank you for calling on me. Thank you so much for your presentations. Everyone has done a wonderful job today. I've actually had some concerns lately. Our area has gone to a lot of virtual meetings and there seems to be we're having a real fund flow problem. We have set up the way for people to donate through the website. Of course, we're also passing the information they can donate directly to Region and to World as well. But the disconnect is real. And I know all areas of our service body are struggling with the funds. we are spending more money on things that we didn't used to spend money on.
Mhm.
And the little bit of money that was going to where it needed to go isn't going there at all. So we're not getting the donations we need at area. We're not, also groups are having a really hard time ordering literature because they don't have, there's no money. We used to order the groups ordered the literature through the area and the area paid for the shipping. Now groups have to order literature themselves because there's no one to deliver literature because they're not going to area to pick it up. So I was thinking though, as much as I've been hearing about the collaboration and the shared resources, that I like the idea that somehow we could cut back some of these. Zoom is making an absolute fortune on us. Maybe we can get Danny to develop our own platform and the money can go to NA instead. So also with consensus-based decision-making, I am trying very hard to inform our groups, and I live in a pretty remote area that never heard of consensus-based decision-making, and now we're having group conscience virtually, and consensus-based decision-making is so helpful for that. It is, I mean, because, you know, you don't, the whole raising your hand thing and all of that, but the fellowship is so behind, at least here, on what that means, that when it gets brought up, it's like, I just tried to tell them that they're from Mars. So whatever resources are more available to help this one lone person in this backwards community would be helpful. Thank you. I haven't got a question.
Thanks, Kim, but maybe I'll just suggest you go and have a look at the NA.org website and check out the toolbox, because there is some specific information on consensus-based decision-making, and thank you for your service. Our list is growing. Clarence, have you still got your hand up, brother?
No, I put my hand down. My question was answered. Thank you.
Oh, cheers. Thank you so much. Craig.
Hey, my addict named Craig. Thank you, Libby and Danny and Joel and Mike Fish Sandwiches on here somewhere, I think. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you for your service. And Irene, I think you called Irene's name. So I'm gonna let you, grab a question out of this, because it's not necessarily a question as much as it is a comment or observation around the whole discussion about virtual meetings. And I know from my own personal experience with the service system project, that sometimes communication, well, all the time, communications is critical. And so sometimes I hear the comment that World Service does not recognize virtual meetings. And that word is a little bit disingenuous. What the position of the office is, and that's from dictation from the World Service Conference, is that those groups are not registered. That's a different connotation than recognize, because when I hear recognize, I hear control, I hear those kind of things, and we all know that's not the position that World Service is in. So I just wanted to kind of call that out, because there's a lot of service that NAWS provides to virtual meetings. A lot of service that's out there on the website, and questions and support that comes from fellowship services. So that I wanted to just kind of say that out loud, and say that in front of you and Danny and other people. And I think Rob and I have talked a little bit about this, and I do believe that as we go forward, and I believe that the world has shifted and has changed, and that that change represents opportunity, and opportunity to maybe reimagine our service structure and how services is delivered, and I would hope that those virtual meetings and group because there's the other thing, there's a difference between a meeting and a group. And I think we all know that, and sometimes that's not clear. But as we go forward, I would hope that community, that virtual community, doesn't put itself in the same box, in this little box called NA service structure, that there's some common themes that happen within a group, whether it's virtual, in person, or whatever. But maybe this is an opportunity to do something different and not be caught in the same box of, the way we've done service over the past. That's worked great for I think all of us, because here we're clean. But, there's also an opportunity to maybe do some things. And I don't believe that it has to be either or. I believe that there can be a combination of land-based service delivery, virtual service delivery. I just think here's an opportunity for us to do some of that, and to not just be put out automatically in a box that we want to be part of an area, or we want to do this and do that, and be just prematurely be put in that box and not have the creative freedom that the literature and service talks about. So I just kind of wanted to call that out. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Craig. And yeah, who would have picked this 12 months ago? Large corporations talk about wanting to be nimble and agile. And I guess our fellowship that had more than 78,000 meetings happening each week went into a virtual world so very, very quickly, where we can all find a meeting. And yeah, you raised some big issues, Craig, that the board continues to talk about. And there's a lot of interest in what we're doing at the moment, and a lot of energy. And as just a reminder that there is going to be an open webinar in March, again with a focus on virtual meetings. So we've got a bunch of work to do, and we do want to get this to reflect what's happening in our world. I have some hands. I just want to acknowledge, I can see that Lewis is putting his hand up, but I've got Mike next, then Lewis, and then Tommy. So Mike.
Hi, Mike O. Addict again. Yeah, two things that I would really like to see coming out of the world, and they concern the two things that we just discussed. Fund flow is really important. We've focused in on that at the Eastern New York region, and at the Nassau area level, and at the group level. Since the beginning, the groups that I was involved in setting up hybrids and or virtual, we immediately began the process of seventh tradition virtually. I think this in line with the second question, which is resources for virtual meetings, which were done by groups, areas, and stuff like that. It's out there, but I don't see it on the virtual part of the world, where groups that are virtual have the tools necessary. For instance, your PDF page of literature. Yeah, it's great. It's been there for a long time, but it's the same old vertical PDFs. They don't work in the Zoom rooms. I've developed, I followed property trusts rules, setting these things up in a horizontal slideshow, copyrights on them and everything, and stuff like that. Our reading cards in our colors in a horizontal format, so that they can be used in a Zoom room, so that it's familiar to all of us who have been attending regular meetings and stuff like that. These kinds of tools and resources is the kind of stuff that we need from world to do proactively, to adapt to this new environment. And like I said, regions and groups did it, but it wasn't, there was no cohesion of giving that information. And the same thing with the seventh tradition fund flow stuff. I am inundated with questions about this stuff, and I'm very familiar with it. I'm very comfortable with it. But there's also some legal ins and outs dealing with 501c3s that we had to hurdles we had to jump through. We had to use Give Butter. We couldn't use Venmo directly as a region because we're a 501c3 nonprofit. These were things that the world can address. You guys have the resources and the tools and the expertise to answer these questions for groups, areas, regions, etc. And we need those. We need you to think about how can world answer these practical questions for the service structure to operate in this new environment, and to place practical use tools on the world website that work in the virtual world. How do we do seventh tradition? And I don't know if Danny wants to speak to the fact that paper money is going away. We don't know when, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Virtual is coming. And we as a fellowship need to adapt to it in the long term. And the caveat I'll add to that, everybody says the expenses involved, the percentage, transactional costs of credit cards and everything else like that. How many groups got money orders for the longest time? Unless you're doing a donation or a literature order over like $40, which many groups don't, you are actually paying more to get a money order than you would be using a virtual transaction via credit card and stuff like that at 2.9% and 30% transaction and 30-cent transaction fee. So that's something to think about too. So yeah, seventh tradition and practical tools for operating virtual things and updating the world website, and giving the groups, areas, and regions this information, please.
Thanks, Mike. So I look at the virtual, like what's happened when the pandemic started and how Narcotics Anonymous just got off the ground and went online, like within moments of the pandemic starting. And yes, some were quicker than others. And it was very much a grassroots movement, very much how Narcotics Anonymous proliferated in the US and how it starts in other locations, and the fellowship development that was done to help were done by other virtual groups. So the virtual resources page is really a reflection of the fact that the fellowship moves way faster than World Services does. And I'll just throw this out there, like if those that are not aware, is we have laid off and furloughed more than 2/3 of our staff. So like there are no shortage of good ideas in Narcotics Anonymous. And as a board, we have to constantly prioritize like what we're working on. And a lot of days, like our priorities, because we're living, breathing, operating business, those priorities can shift constantly. And so we're constantly juggling like the legal side of the business along with the things that the conference has asked us to do. And there were decisions made at the last conference, one being the updates to IP21, the loaner, that we may not even get to this cycle, just due to the fact that the staff that we have that's already working is kind of at their limits. So like if you have good ideas and you've done the work already, like it's very useful to just send that to us. And like your ideas are great, like coming up with correctly formatted readings and having them be part of, World Services collateral is an excellent idea. I just want to be honest with you and let you know that there are a lot of really good ideas. I don't want to weigh your idea against other good ideas, but the best thing you to do is if you've created a resource, share it with the fellowship. And the way that we share that is through that virtual resources page. I agree with you on the paper currency thing. I felt that for a long time that people were, me personally, I haven't carried paper currency around in a very long time. And, one of the great inventions of the pandemic is the fact that we've moved to digital contributions through a variety of sources. When thinking about being a World Services body, our perspective is of a worldwide view. And I know there were some questions about funding platforms or funding collective resources, and World Services definitely can we can have a discussion around that. We haven't, I just, just hearing about this now. But there are other possible options here outside of World Services. I think there was a great presentation on the US zones coming together. And to me, that, you know, not trying to lead a question, but like, this is a great opportunity for zones to come together and collaborate for a geography that makes sense to you. Like funding a, you know, a US based platform makes sense for the US, but Venmo is not able to be used in Europe, for example, or Asia. And so as a world service body, we have to look at our resources and we have to weigh the cost of using those resources as it benefits a worldwide fellowship, because we are world services. So it doesn't mean I'm shutting the idea down. I mean, we haven't discussed it. And we definitely are hearing the fund flow issue for sure. It's definitely an issue that we've heard over and over again. And I'm sure we'll continue to hear about it. And, you know, I'm taking a mental note. Yoel is here. I'm sure Lib is taking a mental note about the fund flow.
Yeah, just to just touch on that. We went from Twigs, Guide to Service, which gave, World did that. Okay, you guys gave us multiple options in Guide to Service on how to do things. That's the guidance we need.
That's exactly.
And not just telling us how to do it one way.
Yeah, sure.
Exploring the multiple options for us to do these complicated things for some people so they have this foundation. You know,
Absolutely,
something like that needs to be done, a project like that.
Absolutely, and that's the project we're talking about right now. Like, I'm sorry if I didn't kind of touch on that point, but the goal of this project is to create resources. Like, it could be a manual, it could be videos, it could be, we haven't discussed what the resource is, if it will be one or multiple resources, but that's exactly what the local service toolbox is about. And it won't be this is how you do virtual meetings. This will be like, this is how we have heard virtual meetings being done. And it will be very, you know, tailored toward the variety of things that we're seeing in NA regarding the 7th tradition, regarding choosing of technology. You know, we haven't even sorted through about what it would look like yet, but that's exactly what we're talking about, is creating a piece of service material or service resources for virtual meetings.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Greg.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Lib. Thank you, everyone. Lib, I'm gonna turn it back over to you. I see 3 hands. The session, the Q&A is up at 4:15. That's when we go on break. So I just wanted to make sure that we share the time for the next 15 minutes to make sure that everybody's questions whose hands are up gets raised.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I was going to remind us all. So next we have, the list is, we have Lewis, Tommy and Charles. And so we have got, by my reckoning, 12 minutes to go. So Lewis, you're next.
Yes, I'm Lewis, I'm an addict. And I wanted to just raise the point that, you know, we did do the CBDM, and the topic of a virtual area joining region actually has happened in Chicagoland. So we did create within our region a virtual area, which is a fully participating, you know, member of our region. And so, and also just, I just want to raise the point that, you know, the whole project on the zonal collaboration and just, and the thing that the virtual things have enabled is it's allowed us to tap into unused resources that are around the fellowship. And especially given how stretched, you know, NAWS is right now, I mean, these are definitely other resources that have kind of come out of the woodwork, as it were, to help, you know, provide things like, you know, the best example is the BMLT and the YAP. I mean, it was local people who did that project, and it's pretty much become, you know, the accepted norm, at least in, you know, most places that I see. And you know, someone mentioned that we've inherited the service structure that kind of, you know, gets in the way of a lot of that. And you know, and so I really would like us to, you know, the zonal collaboration has definitely, I mean, for example, the thing I did with Dennis, I mean, I'm not part of the Northeast Zonal Forum, but yet their fellowship development has reached out to people who know how to do this stuff like me. And Dennis, of course, is. And that's kind of how our borders can sort of fade and how they can sort of, you know, as far as virtual meetings, my home group ain't going back. You know,
Okay.
we've decided it's being virtual. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. And if your area has got any guidelines, please send them into that resource that we're pulling together, because it will help all of us. Tommy, hello. Can you unmute yourself?
Sure. How you doing? I'm Tommy G. I'm a recovering addict.
Hey, Tommy.
RD from the Eastern New York region. Thank you so much, Danny, and for this presentation. It's been very helpful. And I just wanted to share, I don't have a question. I don't know if that with Kim or people that when this happened, I was the area chair last year, and we still had groups that were meeting. And so we found it important to be able to get literature to them if they needed it, especially coins and stuff. And it's progressed instead. So we set up on our website that you can actually go there and set up your order for your literature and then submit it. And then the literature chair takes it. They go to the storage facility, pull all the orders. And then a couple of days after area, which meets online, you go there and you pick up your literature, pay for it in cash, and make a donation if you want to. That's what we've set up. And also on our website, we have a PayPal to donate to the area. So any of our groups feel, that they can make a contribution, they just go straight to our area website and make the donation. So I don't know if that's any helpful, but that's what we did to try to get people. I mean, most of it is coins and stuff, but we have a lot of groups that are opening back up, and this is very helpful to get them literature. Thanks.
Thank you, Tommy. And I guess this is, when I first came into the rooms, there was always somebody who'd done something that I'd done, or someone who knew how to do something and would share, one addict helping another addict. And I guess for me, this is just totally showing this works through all of the parts of our recovery process and being of service. There is an area or a group or a region who's done what we're talking about or asking. So again, it's a blatant plug, if I can, for sending the resources and the tools and tips and tricks that you have to us, because it will help us in developing more tools that we can get out there to our fellowship. It looks like our last person. Thank you for your patience, Charles. If you could unmute, and the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me? Am I unmuted? Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm an addict named Charles, and I'm in service in the DC area and the Chesapeake Summit region. And part of the service I do is H&I, and I go to several virtual meetings, and one of my concerns is anonymity, and we've had to face this in H&I because our subcommittee has been told by some of the facilities, we cannot let you do that in our facility because of protect our clients' anonymity. And and I got a shock once an addict walked up to me in a meeting and said, "Oh, I saw you on Facebook." And I'm an older gentleman. I don't use Facebook. And I believe, that another addict asked to take my picture so he could connect my face to his phone, his number in his phone book, and then that ended up on Facebook. So here's my question or my concern. I know that at NA.org I went and read about anonymity in virtual meetings, and that's the same information that was put out in the very beginning. And has we discovered any new things that we should look out for, or practices that we should have in the 11 months? So that's the question. I personally go to the Zoom trainings, and the instructor at the last Zoom training I went to, the instructor said, we aren't set up. We never intended this platform to be used the way it is, right? A Zoom meeting was intended to be for people that in your office or network, that you wouldn't have to worry about Zoom bombing or anything like that. and a webinar was intended for a more open environment where you don't know, but then you wouldn't be getting feedback. So the question is there in any area or region that you've discovered best practices? And I do read some of this stuff on the on NA.org that would help with the anonymity part. And I agree with everything about funding and you know, we in the DC area struggle with the same thing about how we raise funds and how we get people in service. So thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Danny, I don't know if you've got any thoughts to respond to Charles, but I guess what I'm seeing, Charles, is your camera is off. That's a part of protecting. You know, I work for the government, so I'm vulnerable, but I have faith and trust in where we are as a fellowship right now. But I think there are people who don't turn on their screens, or if there's a requirement at the beginning, they might, and then screen back out. Some people put a different handle or a different name on their screen. That's what I've got. Danny, I reckon you might have more.
I mean, great question, Charles. Anonymity, you know, I would just think when social media became mainstream and people were going to conventions and like taking pictures of each other and tagging each other. And I don't even know if that's really been sorted out, and how we, you know, people adopted an anonymity statement at conventions and things of that nature. So I think anonymity is always, you know, it's always a concern in whatever medium you're at, whether it be an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting. And I think there's some good information there about on that virtual resources page, which you may have seen already, about some of the security controls you can enable on your meeting. And yeah, you know, I agree with you. I think it's a, you know, it's definitely an issue. And I almost certainly think that the tool that we'll create will have something on anonymity in it, because it is something we've heard a lot. And it is definitely a concern for some members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And thank you, Charles. I think we'll hand it back over to our esteemed leaders. Thank you so much for the opportunity for the board to come and share with you what we've been working on. I was looking at some of the chat, and it was a great session. So I've got lots of notes because I'm a writer, and Patricia told that I will be able to look at the recording to make sure that we've got the questions, because we're all experts and we're all learning. And so, yeah, for me, thank you so much. It's been an honour to be a part of your zone today. Thanks for letting me be involved.